patrol. Miller's been captive for 10 days. Not much time left.
Ben, I think the Metal Gear series is something else. For so many reasons, the games themselves and Kojima's legacy, and there's just so much to talk about in this series. But it's not a series that I have made enough time for in the past. Probably even just the past decade. I think I've snubbed many a Metal Gear game when I shouldn't have. I got to make me some time for Metal Gear Solid 5: Phantom Pain. I played it at Judges Week. You played it earlier than that, and you can finally talk about. You played it much longer than I did. But I'm going to pose the questions and the concerns to you.
Yeah.
Because you have much more of a history with Metal Gear than I do. It really is Metal Gear open world. It really is this gigantor map. And the one thing that I think is really fascinating about it that you only see with games like Mercenaries or Just Cause, that like GTA doesn't really have that vibe, because it's like, yeah, you can have a lot of guns on you, but like you really have to go out and like try to find this stuff, and you can really catch yourself like without the resources that you need to do what you want to do, because you're just running around the map so much. Whereas this is really like, you're gonna go here to fulfill this specific mission, and you can bring whatever you want with you, down to the people, down to the weapons, down to the vehicles. And so what was painful for the short slice that I got to eat at E3 Judges Week was I just got to that point where they were like, okay, now go and bring the legend alive. I've been past that, but like saying like you can go out and just grab anybody. You want a goat, you can grab that goat. Like you want the motorcycle or that Jeep or whatever, or that weapon cache, like you can steal that stuff and then progressively upgrade your stuff and get better and take those into more missions. And then that's when I had to stop. Like right when I could tell, like if I was actually playing this game, if this was like a Saturday morning and I had like all weekend to play it, I would probably not do a lot of story stuff, and I would just obsessively visit every single location on the map I could and steal everything I possibly could. Is that what you did for 2-3 days?
Yeah, so I had 2 full days to play as much of the Phantom Pain as possible, and I felt like I was fighting 2 instincts. Because it's so big and there's so much to do, I wanted to do everything, but at the same time, it's like, man, they're giving me kind of this no holds barred, go for it. I wanted to get through as much of the game as possible, so I tried to find a balance in between. And like, I need to get this out of the way. I need to say this. I have never been more excited to sit down and talk about a game on a Just Played than I am talking about the Metal Gear Solid 5: Phantom Pain. It is like, as someone who Metal Gear is my favorite series, it is the most important series to me in video games. I think there are going to be a lot of people that hate the Phantom Pain.
Hate's a strong word.
No, I think it's appropriate here.
Hate because of how it's changing up Metal Gear, and how you like hate for Metal Gear fans. Metal Gear fans are going to hate it because it's so different.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean.
Because I think Joe Q Gamer that just decides like, yeah, sure, Metal Gear, this will finally be the one. I think this is gonna be right up his alley.
Absolutely,
or her alley. But like just because of how much it's adopting a lot of these other ideas that we've gotten used to in action games. I think the stealth it still really owns. Mm-hmm. And if one thing we would talk about, like specifically, not to get sidetracked, but I think maybe not enemy AI, because I didn't really get to test it a lot. I was in such a hurry to like get through and get my objectives done. But enemy movement seemed really cool. Like it didn't really seem like, oh, okay, I'm moving into this area, and this is the way that this area moves, and that guy is always going to go around that building. Enemies would change up their speed a lot. I saw 2 guys talking, and then like they heard a noise and took off, like not running, but like at a steady pace, like around this building. And so I had to like back up and go someplace else. There were lots of patrols that would just show up, so I would like clean out an area and be like, oh, okay, I can just do what I want to do now. And some patrol would come through, driving through the area and like notice guys were gone.
Yeah, no, it's a really brilliant point. I think it's one of the most compelling things about the Phantom Pain is this is the best stealth game I've ever played. I think I'm like willing to go on record saying that because if you think about past Metal Gear games, even Ground Zeroes, which has a lot of the elements that Phantom Pain does, they take place in pretty small areas. Think about almost every area in Metal Gear Solid 4, even the more open areas in Metal Gear Solid 3, there's a degree of predictability to them. You're in this building, okay, there are these many rooms and there are these many guys, and it's like a puzzle that you have to solve. Whereas in the Phantom Pain, it's so open and so huge that there are especially at the beginning when you're not used to it, countless times I missed something. There was a guy on a watchtower that I didn't see, or there was a Jeep that just randomly. There was a moment where I was planning out how I'm going to sneak into this base. All of a sudden, this Jeep pulls up next to me. 3 guys get out. They all see me, and they have to shoot me. And that's what's so cool about the Phantom Pain is it feels like it's just thrilling improvisation the entire time, where you constantly have to make the best of a poor situation. And I don't think the other Metal Gear games had that.
Well, because there's a kind of sense, it's like a tone to stealth, you know? Like, there's a big difference in a stealth game whether you're like, okay, now I'm stealth, okay, now this is clearly an action section. And I think those areas were really defined in past MGS games, and it's really gray now, where it's like, am I clear? I don't know. Like, I don't really know. When I had to put the controller down, I was really pissed because I was on a story mission, and I was supposed to just extract some guy, and couldn't find him. And then I was chatting with journalists later, and one guy was like, oh yeah, there was just some safe door or something that you didn't open.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't really have time to search that extensively because I was so obsessed with like making sure there were no threats. And yeah, when you hear gunfire, it reminds me a little bit of, not to bring Assassin's Creed into it because I'm way more excited about Metal Gear offerings this year than Assassin's Creed offerings, but it does kind of have that vibe where when I see a threat come up, I really have to evaluate, like, do I even need to take care of that guy? Because,
Right.
you know, like, in old MGS games, it seems like there was, like, why wouldn't you? You know, it's like, just get in there, you know, unless you have something to prove, just get in there, you know, nullify your threats, finish your objective, and get out. And, you know, there was that point when I was, in the demo that I played, I rescued Miller. And there was a point where I realized, like, okay, there's like 7 guys left in this base, but I just have to get them out of here. And I think I've taken guys out on this one part, so I'm just going to get him and take off and run out this way. And so I you know, by the time I like got him out of that base, there were still like 8 guys just roaming around that area.
Right. But
But just based on the you know, like you said, like casing the environment from afar, figuring out like the best way to get in based on enemy movement, and then who's really in front of you, and like what, you know, whether you really want to take those guys out.
And the game does a really good job of making you necessitating different approaches. I don't know how familiar you are with sort of this approach, but honestly, at least on the normal difficulty, any Metal Gear game past 2, it's very easy to just trank everybody and move on. I think the tranquilizer gun is kind of overpowered, but here it's kind of kept in check because enemy positions, as we were talking about, they feel random, right? You don't know, like, the patrol routes are kind of, they're not, this guy isn't just walking around in a square. He could go all over the place anytime.
Yeah, if you see a guy in a tower, he's not going to stay in that tower.
Right,
like,
exactly. They move like human beings. And so a lot of times at the beginning of my play session, I would get into the routine. It's like, well, you know, it's Metal Gear, the tranquilizer's overpowered. I would shoot a guy, leave him move on, and then he would get found. And so I'd be like, okay, I have to move the body. But the time it would take for me to trank somebody and then move the body to a safe location, it took so much time that I would get found doing that. And so something that hasn't been very useful to me in past Metal Gear games, throwing a magazine to create a distraction, was suddenly huge in Phantom Pain. And I feel like because it's so big and because the enemies are so intelligent, I'm using a lot more options during missions, like using more tools. Therefore, the game is a lot more interesting as a result. But one of the biggest things, and I don't know how much of it you got to see, is the buddy system.
Yeah, the only buddy I had was the horse.
Okay. During a mission, you can take one buddy with you, and that buddy is with you the entire mission until you like quit out. There's the horse. There's a dog that you can acquire. There's Quiet. She snipes people, and then there's a mech walker that you can get. That's really cool. You hop in, and it has 2 tranquilizer guns on its arms. And what's so great about the buddy system is it feels like no matter what you pick, there's a bit of a compromise. Early on, the horse is really good for getting around, but it can't really do anything other than getting around. I mean, you can have it poop and use that in creative ways if you want, but
Didn't get to that.
The dog, for instance, marking enemies is so important. The dog can sniff out enemies and automatically mark them for you. Because getting resources for your base to make new weapons is so important, he can automatically mark those things, and he can even take out guys by running up and biting them. But because the world is so huge, not having the mobility of the horse or the mech walker, it's way tougher to get around, and so you're more vulnerable when you need to transition from outpost to outpost. And you have to understand the mission. Like, you have to read the briefing. You have to be like, I have to make the best decision for that. And that's just something that hasn't been a part of Metal Gear before. You know, you've always been awarded items at very specific points. And I feel like here, preparation is half the battle.
And one final thing we can talk about that's never been in a Metal Gear game, other than, you know, Peace Walker kind of like set the stage for it, but just having, you know, Mother Base, having Heaven, what's it called?
What's that?
Your Heaven Base?
It's called Mother Base.
Right.
But you're thinking of Outer Heaven.
Right.
Yes.
But there's like different variations of Heaven. Outer Heaven was just one of them, so I wasn't sure what it was called this time. But having your base, having your soldiers back there, assigning people to research certain things, I get ridiculously obsessed with that stuff. You know, just kind of like a game within a game. You know, like and having that work opposite the open world. Yeah. I think even in something like GTA 5, they don't really have like they used to have when you could like buy properties and stuff like that. But like again, I just saw myself getting so obsessed with that and just really like veering off of the main story track because it's like I want to get the best Jeep in the game. I want to get the best tank in the game. I want to train soldiers, make them the best, pick what they wear, like crazy.
And you have all of that, and it works really well with the open world because the things that you're feeding resources into are so valuable. You want to go and explore the open world. You want to go and find things, and I think that's a really good encouragement. Because it always drives me nuts in open world games when I feel like I'm just collecting things just because they're there because that's the expectation of the open world game. But I feel like the mechanic with Mother Base creates a very satisfying loop. But in Peace Walker, you kind of had the same thing, right? Like you were encouraged to go and grab soldiers so you could level up your base and so it would be more powerful. But it just felt like a bunch of menus that were kind of chained together. What's so awesome about Mother Base, is one of my favorite things in the game, is that it brings so much personality. It feels like one giant bonfire in Dark Souls. It's a place that you come to and it feels like home, and it's the little touches that you don't really appreciate early on, but very slowly you start to appreciate. Like every time you come into base, your soldiers will salute you, and when you take off, they'll salute you as well. And there's like a little dog that you can get that will run up and jump into the helicopter and lick your face, or you'll have blood on you from the battle. You can go into the showers and wash it off, and there aren't a bunch of gauges that sort of signify this, which I think is for the best. It makes it more convincing. But morale is a very real thing. If you don't visit your base very much, your soldiers will be kind of despondent when you arrive. They're like, oh, I haven't seen you in a long time. But if you're adamant about returning to base, about seeing your soldiers, about being there, they'll be a lot more enthusiastic.
And in conclusion,
I'm sorry.
No, I could go on for an hour. I mean, you played for 2 days.
So much to say.
I think it's that back to base, then back to the map that really kind of changes up not only Metal Gear and just stealth action, but the whole concept of an open world environment. Like whenever I play open world environments, like Mad Max, I played Batman. I just kind of like roam around. Just like I'm just gonna run around this world and just do whatever comes at me because I want to absorb everything. It's like you were saying, Assassin's Creed. I'm just going to pick up items because it's just fun to do this.
Right, but
it's fun to move around the environment and just grab stuff. And Just Cause or Far Cry, I just see a dot on the map. I want to like take care of it. Whereas everything is so mission focused in MGS, and so like when I go back to the base, like I imagine taking like a half an hour before I start my mission because I really have to specifically say like what items do I want to bring, what buddy do I want to bring. When you fail something, it's like I'm not just going to restart it right away. I'm going to go back to base and just totally reevaluate what I did wrong. So I'm curious how that holds up over the whole campaign.
I agree, and the one final thing I want to say about Mother Base is there are a lot of hubs, I feel like, in open world games, and you might get to do like little deviations to them. Mother Base starts as nothing. It starts as like one strut with a couple of dudes on it. The only way it gets more interesting is if you seriously put the time in to develop it, and the way the game rewards you for doing so is pretty awesome.
I am psyched. Hopefully we'll get a bunch more cool stuff, even though we've seen a lot of it. We'll get even more 83.
Yeah.
So look forward to that, and thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Brandon.